Hi, everybody. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. I hope everybody can see this. I'm going to introduce myself in a minute, but before I talk about me, I want to talk about someone who's very important to me. This is Bobby Kingsbury. Bobby Kingsbury is the very first professional baseball player I had the chance to meet with when I started my career as a mental skills coach. It was 2005. I had just been hired by the Pittsburgh Pirates to be their first ever mental skills coach, and I was being walked around the spring training facility in Bradenton, Florida. And Bobby was hitting in a cage. And, as I was being introduced to people, he said, "Well, when can I get some time with you?" And I look at the coaches and staff members who were introducing me, and they go ahead, go talk to him. And so they found me a room to sit down in, and I didn't really have an office, but just found me a place with a couple chairs and a door that closed. And I sit down, I start talking to Bobby Kingsbury, and I say, "Tell me about yourself." And he says, "I went to Fordham University and I graduated with a finance degree and was drafted in, I forget, the seventh or ninth round of the draft in 2002 and signed for a good amount of money. And my career's been going well. Last year, I was an all-star in Hickory in the South Atlantic League, and I had more homers than I've ever hit. I hit 20-something homers and 30 doubles, and I'm also, third generation Greek heritage, and so I got to be on the Greek Olympic team in the 2004 Olympics. And he's just reading this amazing resume, and I'm listening and going, okay, where's the problem? Right? Like, I've been trained to find out what people's problems are and help them solve those problems. And I don't hear a problem here. This sounds like a great guy who's very talented, who's doing really well. So I don't understand why he wants to talk to me so badly. And so finally, hang on, I'm going to just check one message here on my chat, just to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Yeah, okay, everything's fine. So let me get back in here. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, I go, "Bobby, what can I do to help you?" And I'll never forget this moment. Bobby's shoulders sink and his body language changes, and he just says, "I know I can do better." And so that moment for me, that "I know I can do better" moment, really was an eye-opening moment for me. And it's something I never forgot, and something that I try to teach a lot, because I think when people talk about the mental game, sorry, I got some stuff popping up here, so I'm just going to close this so I can see my own screen. When people talk about the mental game, I'm not sure that they really know what it is. And I want to give you a different definition of that today, and really reframe this, because most of the people that I work with are this list. And I'm guessing that most of the people that are in your programs are this list. They're extremely talented. They're extremely ambitious. They're under pressure to deliver constant results. They're rarely satisfied with their success. They're searching for real answers, and they're unaware that they already have them. And so that's really my job as a mental skills coach, is to work with these talented, ambitious people who feel this pressure to deliver, and help them understand themselves and the situations they're in, so they can have better perspective and they can get more results. So who am I? My name's Geoff Miller. I have a company called Dots Miller LLC. Dots Miller was a there we go. Dots Miller was a second baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates in the early 1900s, and he was Honus Wagner's double play partner. I'll let you go to my website to hear more about why I called my company Dots Miller, but what I do is executive coaching, performance psychology, and career transition with retiring athletes who are trying to figure out what to do with the rest of their lives. Performance psychology is mental skills coaching with professional athletes, Major League Baseball players, NFL players, amateur athletes in lots of sports at lots of levels, whether that's high school, travel, junior college, Olympic training, those kinds of things. For 17 years, I worked in Major League Baseball for the 5 clubs that you see their logos. I started in Pittsburgh in 2005. I went to the Washington Nationals next for 1 year in 2010. I spent 4 years with the Atlanta Braves, 2 years with the Los Angeles Angels, and 5 years with the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm from Southern California, went to UC Riverside for undergrad, did my master's degree at San Diego State, met a great group of people, including one of the world's most famous sports psychologists when I was at San Diego State. And I ended up interning for him and working for him, and then spinning off with a couple of coworkers to form a consulting firm called Winning Mind. And I was doing very similar executive coaching, performance psychology work at Winning Mind. And I actually worked with 4 of those clubs, Pirates, Nationals, Braves, and Angels, as clients of Winning Mind. But when the Philadelphia Phillies called me to come work for the Phillies, I was at a different stage in my life, had a wife and young kids, and was on the road 180 to 200 days a year. And we decided that working for the Phillies meant that I was going to leave my consulting firm at Winning Mind and leave San Diego and move to the Philadelphia area. So I live in New Jersey now. And now that I'm no longer with the Phillies, I've started this practice, Geoff Miller. So to give you a little bit of understanding of what I do and have done in baseball, there are 3 different levels and departments that I've worked in. On the scouting side, I have worked in 15 different draft rooms, evaluating over 5,000 different amateur prospects for not so much risk, but goodness of fit and understanding the psychological characteristics that make successful baseball players for major league teams. And I always like to say that I helped major league teams with this process from the ground up. So it starts with scouting and selecting the right players. And then once we get that draft class in, helping them maximize their potential, helping them understand what they need to do to be successful, how they make learning permanent, speeding up that development process. And so, I think for a long time in professional sports, we would just say experience will teach athletes what they need to know. And I think that's still true. But I think my job and anybody in a mental skills role, part of that job is to speed up that development process, to help athletes understand more about the experience they're getting so they can learn faster and make that learning permanent so they make fewer mistakes along the way. And then in the big leagues, I really believe that development starts over at the big league level. And baseball is a little bit different than most sports in that you can get drafted and become a professional baseball player, and then your journey really begins. And it's not like the NFL and the NBA for the most part, where you get drafted and you're immediately in the big leagues. It takes a long time, and most guys don't even get there. So when you do get there, there is another level and another layer of challenges that you have to learn. Along the way in my consulting firm, I met a former athlete himself, a former Australian cricketer, who felt like he didn't have access to sports psychology and sports psychologists as he was coming up, and felt like he wanted to change that. So he's created something called Optimized Mind Performance. And that is an app that is available on an iPhone or any other kind of phone, but it brings you world-class mental skills coaching right in your phone. So I've been involved in this for almost a year now, and it's really been fun to be able to take some of what I believe and what I think is important and turn that into 1 to 8 minute lessons that athletes and coaches anywhere can listen to right at their phones. And I'm going to tell you more about Optimize later, and that's going to be a little bit of how you can build a plan for student athletes. The rest of today, what we're going to talk about is my formula for success, how focus impacts performance, and focus and pressure are really central to my theory and philosophies. And then those starting points for your athletes, what you can take out of this and bring right back to your programs. Okay, so we talk about Bobby, we talk about this, I know I can do better, but that really leads me to this idea that the mental game is something different for a lot of people. If you ask 10 different mental skills coaches, and I know that BSN Sports does ask different mental skills coaches for their ideas and philosophies a lot, you might get different answers. And so I've boiled this down to a very simple definition. To me, the mental game is made up of 2 constructs. It's knowledge and performing under pressure. And in very simple terms, that's know what to do and do it when it counts. Okay, so the know what to do part a lot of times is what you coaches are teaching on a daily basis, right? Is let me teach this athlete the fundamentals of the sport. Do you know what to do? Do you have that knowledge base, that experience, that information, that baseball IQ, football IQ, lacrosse IQ that you need to have? And then can you do it when it counts? Right. And so coaches are naturally teaching that as well. As you're putting your athletes under pressure, you're trying to help them understand how to be relaxed and calm in those big moments and how to understand the difference between a big moment and a small moment. And for that matter, I'll tell you, there have been a lot of times, especially in the minor leagues, where you play 144 games in 150 days, and sometimes doing it when it counts means at 7 o'clock when the lights come on, and it's not the big leagues. So being able to get motivated for a regular Thursday game in August when you've played 120 games at that point. So this is very simple. It's know what to do it when it counts. You don't have to take a breath. You don't have to repeat anything. You don't have to have self-talk. If you know what to do and you can do it when it counts, then you have a strong mental game, however you get there. And that's really what I think I've prided myself on in my career, is not having a one size fits all cookie cutter step one, step two, step three. It's being able to understand my clients and say, what do you need to do to be successful? And as long as you know what to do and can do it when it counts, then this is your path. And it doesn't have to be like anyone else's. So I have 4 questions or statements that I think really make up my formula for success. This is what this is. I think when I'm working with any client, whether it's an executive, a coach, or an athlete, it's helping them know who they are, know what they want, know what to do when they don't get it, and then know what to do in the meantime while you master 1 through 3. So know who you are, know what you want, know what to do when you don't get it. Those are kind of big picture questions, and they might take a while to understand and answer. And I'll put these in simpler, more sport related terms. So know who you are, self-knowledge, being a self-evaluator. Know what you want is being able to set the right goals. Know what to do when you don't get it is dealing with failure. And then know what to do in the meantime is what I like to call short-term fixes. So this is where a lot of what I think traditional sports psychology would tell you. This is where taking a deep breath, having a routine, having some kind of self-talk, those kinds of concepts, I think, help you deal with pressure. The first 3 questions, I think, help you understand where that pressure comes from. And if you can unlock that, then maybe you don't need the deep breath as much. And maybe you don't need to remind yourself to be positive as much, because you have the right perspective and you understand where you are in the world and in your sport. Okay, so I want to know about you. Okay, how competitive are you? How focused are you? And how confident are you? So we're going to do a little video challenge here. And I have a first question for you. You know nothing about this, right? How confident are you that you're going to get the right answer to this video challenge that I have for you? Okay, so pick one of these and we'll see how confident people are. And this isn't just about confidence, right? It's like, how confident am I in absence of information, right? How much does information matter to me as well? We have some brave people that are choosing. I think we got everybody. Okay, so we've got a nice bell curve of confidence levels here, right? Okay, so here we go. Let's end that poll, Saxton out. Yep, there we go. Okay, and then do I take that off, Saxton, or do you? Because we're going to need to see the screen here in a second for the video. Okay. All right, here we go. there are going to be two teams passing basketballs. Okay. One team is in white shirts, one team is in black shirts. They each have their own basketball, and they're going to be doing a little bit of a three-man weave, kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters would be doing. So your job is going to be to watch the team in white shirts and count exactly how many passes they make as a team. Okay. And then I want you to write down your answer, because I'm going to poll you and we're going to see how many of you get the right answer. Okay. There's our team in white. There's our team in black. And you are going to count the passes for the team in white. 3, 2, 1, begin. Okay. How many did you get? 13, 14, 15, or 16? Some of you might have said 12 or 17, but you definitely are not correct for that one. Got a lot of 14s here. Some 13s coming on, some 15s. Nobody said 16. Okay, so majority looks like they're saying 14. The correct answer is 15. So 8 of you are correct. Congratulations. Now, did you see anything else interesting in this video? Did you see a vampire? Did you see a gorilla? Did you see the elevator open, or none of the above? In Saxton, are we able to move that, or do I need to do that?
All right, the poll is all set, Geoff.
Oh, okay. It's not coming up for me. Let me try this.
So
Okay,
it looks like 14 was the winner for the passes.
right. And do we have the next question up?
Yep. So it's just underneath the other one. So gorilla, and then elevator open, and then none of these were no vampire.
Okay, I can't see that. So some people said gorilla and some people said
Yep.
vampire.
So 16 out of 32 said gorilla. 5 out of 32 said elevator opened, and then 11 out of 32 said none of these. No one selected vampire.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. And then if we can close that, we'll watch this again. So I want you to watch again, and this time I don't want you to count the passes. Here, I guess I can close that. There we go. Okay, watch again. Don't count the passes this time. Okay, so the 11 of you who didn't see anything, hopefully you saw the gorilla that time. The 16 of you that saw the gorilla, congratulations. And the 5 of you that saw the elevator opening, I hope did not see that this time, because I didn't. Okay, so what happened there? I asked you to focus on something, and you did, right? And most of you got close. There's a really, really quick pass between 14 and 15. that gets you to 15. So it's not easy to see. Most people say 14 passes. If you got 15 and you also saw the gorilla, that is very rare. So, if you got 15 and saw the gorilla, and also I'll say this video has been around for a little bit, so maybe you've already seen this, but if this is the first time you saw this video and you saw the gorilla and got 15, say something in the chat to denote that, because that's very rare. This was research that was done at Harvard by a guy named Daniel Simons, and it's called inattentional blindness. And the idea is that you could have something right in front of your face and still miss it. And it shows the importance of paying attention and being able to narrow and broaden your focus. It was initially done for eyewitness testimony in court cases that two people could be at the exact same accident scene and see something different. And the lessons that I like to take away from this are, number one, even a little pressure can impact your performance. So if you think about who you are, I'm guessing that you're all competitive people. If you think about the student athletes that you're working with on a daily basis on your teams, I'm guessing that those are competitive people. So that competitiveness, there was no reward for you to get the right answer, right? But I challenged you and I said, let's see if you can do this. And so that focus that you put into a task because you want to get the right answer, that you want to be victorious, can really change how we narrow our focus and how we miss things in our environment, okay? And then second, to perform at your best, you have to understand the mental game. You have to understand that know what to do and do it when it counts combination for yourself, okay? And where I would explain today and where I'll pick up from inattentional blindness and Daniel Simons is on what we call the 4 channels of focus. Each person has to understand what these 4 channels are and how they work for them. And so this diagram that you see in front of you is how people pay attention. You get 4 channels. You don't get Netflix. You don't get DirecTV. You don't get pay-per-views or Amazon or anything else or regular cable, right? Like you don't get any of those other things. You get 4 channels, okay? Those channels are made up these 2 axes. And the first is what we call scope, and the second is what we call direction. So the scope of your attention is broad or narrow, and the direction can be external or internal. So anytime I'm in my outside world, I have an external focus. Anytime I'm inside my head, I have an internal focus. And if I'm trying to focus on how many passes the team in white is making, I have a narrow focus. And if I'm just watching the video and I see that gorilla come through, then I have a broad focus, okay? So if we plot this on the graph, we have broad external, which we call awareness, broad internal, which we call analysis, narrow internal, which we call problem solving, and narrow external, which we call action. So most sport actions happen in that action channel, so I would call it that. You have to be narrowly focused and external. So you can't be thinking about anything, and you have to be focused on just that one thing that's important. So if that's a hitter, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, it's being able to focus on seeing the ball out of the pitcher's hand. If it's a golfer, it might be focusing on the line for your putt and then really just focusing on the putt itself and keeping your head down and not looking up to see if you made it. If it's a basketball player, it might be the front of the rim. If it's a swimmer, it might be some kind of a focal point that you've had to keep you in a rhythm, and same with a track athlete or a cross-country runner. So your focus is going to be really important to be narrow in some of those key moments. Now, most sports are going to ask you to have some kind of awareness as well, right? So a football player is going to need to be able to scan the field. A baseball player is going to need to be able to know what base to throw to and where a runner is going. A basketball player has that kind of feel for teammates that are filling the lanes and where the defense is. And even a golfer, right? A golfer, I think, using those 4 channels, I think is the simplest to explain for golf, because you start with awareness. You start with where am I on the course, right? And being able to plan your shot that way. And then once you have the information of how far from the hole you are and what your lie is like and what's in front of you, then you can analyze and think about what club you're going to need to hit for that moment. then you're going to picture it in that narrow internal spot, and then you're going to tune everything else out and you're going to swing the club, hopefully. So that's the 4 channels. There's some rules with those 4 channels. And one is that we can only be on one at a time. Okay, so you can't be broad and narrow at the same time. You can't be external and internal at the same time. You can only be on one. When we feel pressure, we go to our favorite channel, even if it's the wrong one to use. So this is about knowing who you are. What's your favorite channel? Because you need to know, this is how I'm going to respond to pressure. Okay, this is how I'm going to be thinking and acting when I feel pressure. And as pressure increases, doubt takes over and the channel gets stuck. At some point, we all have that doubt threshold, and that gets us to narrow internal. And narrow internal at that point are negative thoughts. Okay, so knowing who you are is, where do I feel pressure and where's that threshold for me? And then each job requires a specific combination of using the 4 channels. So as I outline that golf example, that's part of the knowing what to do, right? Like, I need to know, how often can I be in the awareness channel? How often and when can I be thinking, right? If you're a baseball player, if you're a pitcher, it's very easy to be able to be in an internal channel because you've got the ball on the mound and nothing happens until you pitch. If you are a soccer player and you're on defense, you better not be on an internal channel while an attack is coming, because they're going to go right by you, right? So you have to know, when do I have a chance to check in with myself and think about how I'm doing? And when do I have to be external and make sure that I'm aware of what's going on and focused on that moment? Okay, so to perform under pressure, you got to know your favorite channel. You have to recognize reverting to your comfort zones, and comfort zones happen when we start to feel pressure. We want to feel comfortable, so we're going to go to the channel that makes us feel most comfortable, or we're going to go to the social style that makes us feel more comfortable, right? So if you have extroverts and introverts on your team, and they start to feel pressure, the extroverts are going to want to be around all their friends, and the introverts are going to want to be by themselves, right? That's how they're dealing with pressure. And then when I'm coaching athletes, I'm always trying to help them find a way back to the one thing that's most important. And I've been calling that lately focusing on what matters, right? There could be all this other stuff going on, but in the moment, what's the one thing that matters and how do I get back to that? That's going to be much easier than eliminating the doubt or eliminating that feeling to be by myself, or some of those other kinds of personality characteristics that make us feel uncomfortable. You can have all that and still focus on that one thing that matters. Okay, so if we talk about the 4 channels and my formula for success, big questions: know who you are. You got to know what your favorite channel is to perform at your best. Know what you want. So I see this a lot. People set goals and then they start wanting something else. So some of those conflicting goals can distract us and get us in our heads thinking that they're not accomplishing what they wanted. Know what to do when you don't get it. How do I get back to the right channel when I'm failing? And know what to do in the meantime. That's where routines and breathing really help, because we know we're not supposed to be in our head. So if I take a deep breath, have some kind of a reset, some kind of a routine that I can do out there on the field, then it helps me get back out of those internal channels. Okay, so here's that example I was saying. I worked with a professional hitter who was saying to me, when I'm taking batting practice, my hitting coach is like leaning on the cage, and he's always telling me, be on time, be on time, be on time. And I want to do that. I know I need to be on time. But when he tells me to be on time, I'm thinking about being on time instead of just seeing the ball. So if I'm thinking being on time, I'm going to be late, or something else is going to happen. I'm trying so hard to be on time that I end up being early. So I can't do that. So I'm trying to figure out, what do I do with this coach who's telling me be on time? And so we talked through that, and I think the simple answer was, talk to the coach about when I know I'm supposed to be on time, but I distract myself thinking about being on time. So it was really helping him set up a very simple routine: get in the box, do something I call grip and release. So for a baseball player, grip and release would be to grip the bat really tight, take my deep breath, and as I do that, I kind of let go of the bat. And as I let go of the bat, I'm also giving myself a mental cue to just let go of whatever I'm thinking and just see the ball. Okay. And so really it's back to see the ball, hit the ball. And if I can do that, then I'll be on time. If I'm late, it's usually because I'm thinking something, not because my mechanics are messed up. And so it's really about helping people see that being on time is a good way to review your performance, but it's not a good process for helping yourself be on time. Okay. And so to accentuate that, to compete, you got to be focused on your task. See, the ball is right here, narrow external. That's the action channel. That's if I want to hit the ball, I have to see it. And if I'm using my eyes, then I'm not thinking. The opposite is also true because I can only be on one channel at a time. So if I'm thinking about be on time, then I'm evaluating my timing. Okay. Evaluating puts you in an internal channel. And that's true for confidence level. It's true for readiness. It's true. I see this a lot. I see athletes who say, I'm trying to be confident or I'm trying to be positive. And then they get into those big moments and they feel a lack of confidence or they feel some negativity. And instead of just focusing on what they need to do that matters, they're evaluating their confidence level or they're evaluating the negativity and trying to do something to get rid of it. And now they're distracted and they're internal. So it's really about, no matter where you are, if you're not feeling confident, don't work on the confidence right now. Let's just focus on what we need to focus on, and the confidence will come back later. Okay. So I have another poll question for you, and this moves into what you can be doing now to help your athletes. I'm curious, how are you currently providing and teaching mental skills in your athletic programs? And it could be more than one of these, but I guess just pick one. Okay, very cool to see a lot of full-time staff. That's great. I didn't know there was that much of that going on. Or maybe I'm thinking high schools and there are some collegiate people here that have some great staff members on campus, but that's good to see. And books are popular, speakers once in a while, and a lot of people maybe are tuning in because they want to know more about what they can do. So So I want to talk to you about Optimize, but I don't want this to be commercial. So what I really want to do is talk to you about some of the solutions that are in Optimize that you can take with you today. Okay. So as I said, Optimize Mind Performance is something that brings together some of the best mental skills coaches in the world. And it's been really neat to see this group of people that are part of this. Sorry, hang on one second. There we go. We have a cricket psychologist from Australia. We have another from England. We have a woman who works with Manchester City in the English Premier League who's working on some content. We have a woman who has been an associate AD at a major university who is also a sports psychologist, a sports psychologist for the Los Angeles Lakers and track and field and NFL people. And we actually have a number of New England Patriots players who are creating their own content and talking about their experience, not just in the NFL, but getting to college and getting drafted and playing at the highest levels. And that's been really interesting to see some of those athlete insights. But if you're looking for content on confidence, resilience, motivation, concentration, these things are in here. And what I really love about the app is it kind of meets athletes where they are today, that you download this on your phone and you're sitting on the bus on your way to a big game. You can listen to the lessons that you want when you want. And I think that's really cool. So I wanted to give you a little bit of some of the lessons that I have in there. Most of my content is very baseball specific for now, but I have a series on athlete identity and routines that are going to be in the app in the next few months, and those are general sport. But some of this stuff, like the foundations for self-evaluation, are very generalizable. And if you're a baseball person, or if you have baseball coaches on campus that you think would be interested in this, what I'm putting into the app is really the same kinds of things that minor league and major league baseball players would be using on a daily basis. So that know who you are, know what you want, know what to do when you don't get it, know what to do in the meantime. I wanted to give you some of those starting points. So know who you are. This is a very simple way for you and your athletes to be able to self-evaluate. Okay, so when I teach athletes to self-evaluate, I'm going to ask them to review their performance like this. What am I doing well? What do I need to improve? And what's one thing I can focus on right now to play my best? So especially these first two questions, what am I doing well? What do I need to improve? If you have people, and I'll tell you, self-evaluation is really hard to be balanced. It's hard to be both, to not be, to be tough on yourself, but not too tough. So people that are too tough on themselves are not going to see what they're doing well, and people that aren't tough enough are not going to see what they need to improve. So those three questions are very simple ways to get at that. Know what you want. What do your athletes want? They want to play more. They want some kind of recognition. If they're high schoolers, they want a scholarship to move on and play. Or if they're in college, they might want to play professionally. Okay, so I think result-based goals are okay, but you got to have a process to measure to get on. So if I'm working with, whether it's a high school or junior college or college pitcher, and he says, I want to get drafted, I'm going to say, great, let's put that up on the bulletin board. But how are we going to do that? And we pick something very simple and very developmental. It's, I want to work on my fastball command, so we're going to measure that right now. And that's going to kind of go into being drafted at some point. And then routines. So the series on routines is not in the app yet, but it will be. I have off-field routines, pre-park routines, pre-game, in-game, and post-game. Now, I think most people, when they think about routines, are thinking about in-game. What do I do in that moment to take my deep breath when it matters? I think pre-game and post-game routines are very important, and I think they're overlooked. And then pre-park and off-field are a little bit more detailed. But to me, if you've got pre-game, in-game, post-game, then I think you're going to be covering most of it. And my definitions for that are, I'm ready in the moment for in-game. Pre-game is, I know what to do so I can be physically and mentally ready for my competition. That could be 20 minutes, that could be 6 hours. It depends on how long you are. A baseball player is going to show up at the field at 1 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game. So there could be a lot in that pre-game routine. And then post-game routines, to be able to review your performance, learn from it, and move on. And then I have one more note on the post-game routines. There's a lot of talk about sleep these days. And I would tell you that most of the athletes that I work with who tell me I'm having trouble sleeping are not having a sleep issue so much as they just can't turn their brains off. So I think if you can get to a very simple 10-minute post-game routine that helps people process what happened, find some kind of learning, and then say, I'm done with that now, and now I can go see my family, now I can go have dinner, now I can study, now I can go to bed, those kinds of things, then I think they sleep better because they've processed everything. Okay, so I know that was very rushed. One more note for you is Optimize. And again, I am a content creator and an advisor for Optimize. I don't handle any of the business. But what I know that they're doing is they are providing a heavily discounted rate for an annual contract with entire athletic departments. So if you're looking to add some kind of a mental skills content for your program, this is a good way to do it cheaply, and everyone at your school that's an athlete and your coaches get access to it for one price that's much lower than the regular price of downloading it individually. Okay, so that's my formula for success. Know who you are, know what you want, know what to do when you don't get it, understanding of focus and how it impacts performance, and some starting points. I know that was super fast. If you have questions, you are welcome to email me, gmiller@dotsmiller.com. I hope you'll go on my website and see the story for why my company is called Dots Miller. And if you want more information on Optimize, you can download the app. There is a 7-day free trial, so you can test it out and see about it. But if you want to learn more about having this for all of your athletes and coaches at your school, then contact me and I'll put you in touch with the CEO of Optimize. Okay, that's all I have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Geoff. That was some amazing content for all these coaches. We did get a few questions that came in through direct message. So if you don't mind, I can get started on those for you.
Sure.
Awesome. So the first one asks, do you see pre-game anxiety in athletes even at the pro level? If so, how do you help them overcome this?
I see it a lot. Yes. And I think I would go back to that pregame routine. I think when people are having pregame anxiety, I think some kind of a process for making sure that they feel prepared, right? It's kind of like studying for a test. If you've studied, maybe you don't feel as nervous, or maybe just the acknowledgement that you did study so that you're ready. There's a lot of talk about turning that anxiety and that energy into a positive thing, and knowing and understanding that you care, and I think that's fine. But ultimately, you want people to be comfortable when they actually start competing as much as possible. And so I think it's about, am I being prepared? Am I doing what I need to do to prepare? And then do I have some kind of a routine that actually gets me to competition mode? And then do I know what to do in those moments when it matters?
Awesome. The next one asks, do you work on any other visualization activities aside from the vision board with your athletes?
Yeah, so I actually have a whole series on mental practice in the app as well. And so I call it mental practice more than visualization. I think visualization, I actually think a lot of things in the mental skills sports psychology world have kind of become stereotypes. So I want to make them very practical. So I'll have athletes do a couple things. I'm going to have them practice reps, especially in places like football, where you don't want to actually get hit a lot, right? Like in places where your body's going to take a beating, or pitchers, I'm going to have them do mental bullpens or throw mental innings, because they can't throw an inning every day. But I can have them mentally practice throwing to hitters and throwing bullpens, and that's not going to hurt their arms. So I'm having them do that. I have a concept I call movie edits. And that would be like, if you think about making a movie, an actor messes up a line and then they cut the scene and they start over. And sometimes it can take 20 takes for them to get it right. And then you basically see yourself doing it right, whatever you messed up. This is especially true if like you want one play back, right? I've had a great game, but in the fourth quarter, I threw an interception and we lost the game. Or, I turned over the ball at the end of the game, that kind of thing. You can go back and see yourself doing it successfully, and then you kind of put that into your movie and you cut out all of the bad takes, and you remember how to execute properly. So those are some kinds of ideas for using mental practice.
Awesome. And the last one we got is, what are some of the most common issues you have seen athletes struggle with?
What I started with, that I think most people, people ask me, whether it's at a party or anywhere, when they find out what I do, they're like, so what is it? Do you help people get out of slumps? Do you help people with depression or anxiety, those kinds of things? And by the way, I don't do anything clinical. I stick to performance. But what I help people with, and the most common thing I help people with, is really talented, ambitious people understand how to get out of their own way, so they can use all their talents.